Remember, labelling a statement a claim of fact does not make it true. It is up to the writer or arguer to provide support to prove that the statement is indeed true. As stated previously, to support a claim of fact, the writer or arguer needs to produce sufficient and appropriate data, that is, statistics, examples, or testimony from reliable sources. Provided this requirement is met, the task of establishing a factual claim would seem to be relatively straightforward. But real life is rarely straightforward. Whenever you try to establish a claim of fact, you will need to ask at least 3 questions about the material you plan to use. What are sufficient and appropriate data? Who are the reliable authorities? Have I made clear whether my statements are facts or inferences? An inference is an interpretation of facts. The amount and kind of data for a particular argument depends on the importance and complexity of the subject. The more controversial the subject, the more facts and testimony you will need to supply. Claim: the nuclear arsenal of Israel is greater than that of Pakistan. If you are to support this claim, you will need to provide a larger quantity of data than for a claim that says, by following 3 steps, you can train your dog to sit and heel in 15 minutes. In examining your facts, opinions, and examples, an alert reader or listener will want to know if they are current, relevant, and representative. Let us first deal with the idea of current information. The importance of up-to-date information depends on the subject. If, for example, you are defending the claim that suicide is immoral, you will not need to examine new data. New does not always mean best, but in fields where research is ongoing, like education, psychology, technology, medicine, and all the natural and physical sciences, you should be sensitive to the dates of the research. All evidence should, of course, contribute to the development of the argument. Sometimes the arguer loses sight of the subject and introduces examples that are wide of the mark. If, for example, I question the way a particular internet company collects data, and I introduce the salary of the CEO into the debate as a support for my claim, then this example could be described as interesting but irrelevant. If you were to claim that the household interest in getting high-speed broadband in rural Ireland was low, based on a survey conducted in a small rural village in Waterford named Aglish, you would have to know whether Aglish was a typical representation of a small village in rural Ireland. Maybe Aglish differs because it has a high percentage of people over 65 and is unrepresentative of the typical age groups found in other rural villages. The critical reader or listener will also look for testimony from more than one authority. Although there may be cases where only 1 or 2 experts, because they've achieved a unique breakthrough in their field, will be sufficient. For example, Watson and Crick, who first discovered the structure of the DNA molecule. On the other hand, the verification of the Hitler diaries in 1983 required at least a dozen experts. Historians, writing experts, paper experts, ink experts, etc. Not all of those who pronounce themselves expert are trustworthy. You will need to find out at a very basic level whether the so-called expert has expertise in the particular field under discussion. You will have to get to know the rank and the title of the expert and his or her association with reputable universities, research centres or think tanks. Has he or she published anything, and has that publication been peer-reviewed? Peer review is a process of subjecting an author's scholarly work, research or ideas to the scrutiny of others who are expert in the same field. In addition, you should question the identity of any sources listed as spokesperson, reliable source, an unidentified authority. The mass media use these descriptions regularly. Even when the identification is clear and genuine, you should ask if the credentials are relevant to the field in which the authority claims an expertise. Bias has been defined as lacking a neutral viewpoint. Even authorities who satisfy the criteria for expertise may be guilty of bias. The fully certified expert may not be aware of his or her bias, but may fall into the trap of ignoring evidence that contradicts his or her worldview or claim and selecting evidence that support it. What if the experts disagree? After a preliminary investigation of a controversial subject, you may decide that you have sufficient material to support your claim. But if you read further, you may discover that other material by equally qualified experts contradict your original claim. In this situation, you may need to continue reading other authorities to determine whether a greater number of experts support one opinion or another. Although numbers alone, even of experts, don't guarantee the truth, non-experts like ourselves have little choice but to accept the authority of the greater number of experts in a given field until evidence to the contrary comes along. You have to be very careful about using witness statements to support your claim. The witness may be poorly trained to make accurate observations about, for example, the speed of a vehicle or the distance from an object. In addition, the witness may be biased for or against the outcome of an event. Just to restate the difference between facts and inferences. A fact is a statement that can be verified. An inference is an interpretation of the facts that can never do more than suggest something is probable. For example, if I say too much time spent watching television has caused a steady decline in the reading ability of teenagers and adults. Presented this way, the statement is clearly intended to be read as a factual claim that has been or can be proven. But this statement is an inference because I have interpreted two separate facts and stated that one fact has caused the other. So just to make it crystal clear, I will restate it again. No inference can suggest more than probability. Some inferences are much more reliable than others and offer a high degree of probability. Almost all claims in science are based on inferences or interpretations of data on which most scientists agree. Over 90% of scientists have inferred from data across a wide range of disciplines that very serious planet warming is taking place and that human activity is playing a decisive role in this warming. At the moment, We cannot be certain that this is the case, but the probability is very, very high because no other interpretation works so well to explain all the observable data. Inferences are profoundly important, and most arguments would not proceed very far without them. But an inference is not a fact. Inferences deal with probabilities, as do most interpretations of data. Referring to global warming, we can safely say that if most scientists infer from the observable data that human activity is contributing to decisive global warming, then there is a very, very high probability that we are. The writer or arguer must make it clear when he or she offers an inference, an interpretation, or an opinion that is not a fact. To summarize, when you are defending a claim of fact by writing a script or an essay, make sure that your claim is clearly stated, preferably at the beginning of your paper. Define terms that are ambiguous, for example, liberal, radical, socialist. As far as possible, make sure your evidence, facts and opinions, or interpretations of the facts are sufficient, accurate, recent, representative. The authorities you quote should be reliable. Make clear when conclusions about the data are inferences or interpretations, not facts. Arrange your evidence in order to emphasize what is important. Place it at the beginning or the end, the most emphatic positions in an essay, and devote more space to it.